Hi, everyone. A warm welcome to Me Vision Academy conversations. And at the moment, we're doing it with people caring leaders. In fact, we should have done it a long time ago. We've been doing interviews for years and years. These are individuals who declare themselves or they have been nominated by others as people caring leaders. But then we authenticate it. We actually engage individuals that work with them or have worked with them, make sure that they are, in fact, people caring leaders. And we have one with us today. I'll introduce her in a moment. Very briefly, a people caring leader is someone who prioritizes the P of people above all the other P's that we find in leadership. It's often power through position or prosperity or popularity, profits, performance, prestige. There's so many P's that a lot of leaders, most leaders perhaps, prioritize above people. We're in search on a quest to find the people caring leaders who put that P of people right at the top. They know it. The people know it. That's why we check. And we want to explore why and how they do this. What changed them? What have they learned? How do they do it? Why is it so important for them to be people caring leaders? Today we have Kerry-Anne Mathieson. She's the head of marketing at, is it MVIA? Is that how you say it?
MVIA.
MVIA.
Yep, it's MVIA, Insurance Administrators. Yeah.
Yeah, they deliver administrative services to insurers, brokers, financial institutions, and more. And she's their head of marketing, as I said. So it's really good to have you with us, Kerry-Anne. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Congratulations. And I really mean this. We engage some of your people, and it's very clear that you're on that journey of you are a people caring leader. That's still growing in that department. We all are. But we are recognizing you today as being one who believes in that and who strives to be a people caring leader. And that's why we have you today. So welcome. We will have this interview, this discussion, and others can learn and be inspired by it. But we will also afterwards formulate your own exclusive Me Vision Academy certificate in recognition of this incredible achievement. Kerry-Anne, where and how did your breakthrough happen to become a people caring leader? It's probably not from young. It's probably not always been the case. And we're interested in that.
Yeah.
How did it happen?
Yeah. So I think growing up, I was probably quite empathetic, probably more so than the average child. And realizing that, just through positive reinforcement, you could get quite a lot done and bring the best out of people. And so I think that was the foundation. So I had probably a slightly elevated level of empathy. And that kind of gave me, or it set the tone for when I walked into ENIA International in 2014. As a people development company, I was heading up their marketing for them. And it was there that I learned about the Enneagram, and that really fast-tracked my personal development. And it was where I got to learn about the real core of the why of my behavior. And in so doing that, I learned how everyone has that same trigger or triggers that have a resultant behavior or defense mechanism. And we're all walking around with these defense mechanisms. And when you start to see that people are just putting on this presentation and that underneath there is a wounded child that essentially has something that can make them, either perform or stress. So going through that process within my own personal development journey, I started to extend and realize that, everyone has these things that they're dealing with. And if only people could recognize these things that we're all dealing with, not just brush them under the carpet or pretend they don't exist or power through them, but to really acknowledge them and to address them and then to develop them, because those weaknesses or what perceived weaknesses are actually very often the case of strength. So going through that process and learning the Enneagram and about personal mastery and about resilience, it kind of really set the foundation for where I am today, where I'm able to tap into, the people that are around me and understand them and see the behavior and see the person behind the behavior, and then work towards how do we get those people to be comfortable with who they are in order to perform at their best. So that's kind of where I am today, still navigating this journey. It's something that, you're always going to learn, but it's that growth mindset, I think, that allows me to go on this journey. It's difficult. We're always going to learn. Sometimes I have the sense of imposter syndrome, but in reality, I'm actually just a beginner in this whole process. So yeah, it's been very, very rewarding. And I look forward to much more growth.
Excellent, Kerry-Anne. Just very quickly, the old man with us. It's good to have him with us, and he'll also jump in with some questions. Hi, old man. Welcome.
Well, Kerry-Anne, it's good to meet you.
Hi, Louis.
Christo, our boffin here, has been trying hard. It's the second laptop he's organized for me to participate. Kerry, I appreciate your comments. It is inspirational, though, when we see the effort people make to what we call to awaken their best self. And what you're saying to us is a long-term commitment to do that. And then as you grow to understand yourself, you're far better equipped to really empathetically help others to sense and feel. It's really not about the content so much. It's about your kind of spirit speaking to the other spirit to be true to themselves. So thank you for that.
Kerry-Anne?
Thank you, Louis.
Kerry-Anne, thank you, old man. So the Enneagram played quite a role for you, and I've been exposed to it. It's a very extensive personality type evaluation tool. Just give us a few seconds on the Enneagram. Leaders may be interested in that because it does help you understand other people.
Yeah. So the Enneagram is one of many personality typing tools. The nice thing about the Enneagram is that it's not going to give you one type and says, this is who you are, and this is the box that you're in. It's way more nuanced than that. So there's essentially 9 personality styles. And we say styles because, it's very quick to type people. And I think if you're really going to look at human behavior, you'll realize that it's contextual. And so you'll see these various different personality styles starting to emerge based on context or mood or position. And so the Enneagram is great because there's 9 different ones, and you can be more than one personality style. Yes, you'll have one that is more dominant than the other. And so that for me was so powerful because I got to realize that if you think of a moon being hit by an asteroid or a comet, it leaves a crater. And essentially the defense mechanism that's formed around that is your Enneagram or personality type. And so that is what the world sees. It's something that's protecting your weaker or your perceived weaknesses or vulnerabilities. So I like that approach in the Enneagram because it doesn't just tell you this is how you are. It tells you why you are that way, what caused it, and then allows you to build on and develop those strengths and triggers or developmental areas that you have based within that personality profile. And the fact that you can highlight one particular Enneagram type as your dominant, but then also have a secondary and tertiary. And in fact, you can have a profile on all 9 types. You can have, and it's basically frequency of use of that defense mechanism. That's what I really loved about it, is that you're not just put in a box. Then further to that, in terms of communication, you start to realize how you're also talking to another person who has a perceived way of seeing the world that is caused by or rooted in some form of human behavior that is a defense mechanism that's keeping them safe.
Mm.
When you start to see people in that way, you're automatically more authentic in how you approach them and how you connect with them. It opens up the doors for how do you get the best out of them while still being aware of what the potential triggers are. And it's also a nice way to kind of, again, fast pace or fast track a coaching experience. So, if you were working with a coach, it might take 6 or 12 sessions to kind of really get to the root cause of what's bugging you. The Enneagram, through a psychometric assessment, can almost do that in one session with having a report done at the same time. That's what I really found valuable with, the Enneagram.
Yeah. So being a people caring leader, we're also assuming that individuals who lead that way believe or think and see people in different ways than those who think power should be at the top of the hierarchy, or position, or prosperity, or popularity and performance, and all those so-called important things. How do you view people? I mean, what's your almost philosophical, and maybe not even philosophical, but there's another word I'm looking for, belief around people as a leader?
Yeah. I think it's easy to say all the bad things. Like when you think of leadership or when you're in a position of power, essentially, the thing is, I think people are often seen as a commodity or as a number. And for me, I've really struggled with that because people are so deep. And I'll often sit in a mall and look at other people around me and realize that all these people that are just going about their daily, they have as much of a vivacious and intricate inner voice and life and system as what I do. And yet they feel like they're so separate from me. So it's tapping into that thought of everyone is so incredibly unique. Everyone has got something that's really bugging them, that they're passionate about, that they're driven for, that, that perhaps that they're hurting for, or someone that they love or are loved. And when you start to see how complex the systems are around people, you can't just see them as a number or another person. Everyone is unique. And it's been quite a recent realization that, when you start to look at people as individuals, that you start to realize that there's way more to life than just the power or the performance or the profits.
Mm. Yeah, thank you for that. And maybe you can just give us some insight into how you lead people. So I think you've given some foundational principles from which you lead people. In other words, how you see them as unique and different and complex, and how you look at their personality types maybe, and what are their strengths. But in general, do you lead in terms of have lots of one-on-one sessions? What are some key characteristics of your leadership when it comes to people that others could maybe draw from?
Yeah, I think that my leadership style is to not be afraid to say the difficult things. I think very often there's a lot that goes unsaid in critical feedback. And for me, critical feedback has been one of the strongest ways to build rapport and develop my team into realizing where they could develop and then grow as well. And it's been a learning for me because I traditionally would run away from critical feedback. It's been something that I've really worked very hard on. And so developing that into my leadership style has been very important for me because it's something that I wouldn't want to do, but I need it. And so I thrive on critical feedback from other people as well. And it's constructive, and it's where there's candor and there's no, it's all with respect, of course. And I just found that my team have responded well to that. And so that's one of the facets that I think is a big part of my leadership style. But then also just honestly really caring. about what's going on in their lives. Systems thinking tells us that it's not just isolated events. What happens at home does have a ripple effect into the office. What's happening in the office does have an effect on what's going on at home. So incorporating all those systems and realizing that we're not just elements that are taken, uprooted, and then planted back at home and uprooted and planted back in the office. So incorporating that and helping people to understand that, if you've got 80% capacity, then allowing the other team members to be able to communicate that and receive that feedback and then to help support one another. So again, I think another facet of my leadership is to build support across the team. So not just working in silos. And I found that has also been very valuable.
What do you think about the perception that people carrying leaders are a walkover? They can be taken advantage of. They can't be tough with people. Do you think that's true? Is it a trap that you've fallen into maybe as you've tried to become a people caring leader more and more? What are your views on that?
Yeah, it is a struggle. I think that, when it comes down to having those tough conversations with my team, it's because, some areas aren't being addressed. And, I have the strength to be able to push back to the other executives and say, I need to do this my way. It's only going to work if I do it my way. They are not people caring leaders, and I absolutely respect that. But my team, I'm going to do it my way. And that means that there are going to be additional steps in which, things need to be done or processes need to be, run through, conversations need to be had. But I'm not going to bulldoze my way through my team and force them to do things when I know that they don't have the capacity or I haven't even had the conversation with them. So there is this perception of, people caring, people in general, not just leaders, are walkovers. When the opposite is actually true. I am exceptionally tough, but I'm going to have those tough conversations with the right people, and I'm going to have the gentle conversations with the right people. It's about contextual behavior again. So positioning it properly, I think really, really is very valuable. But yes, there is this perception of people being soft or being walkovers, and it's something that I struggle with daily. It's something I question myself on. Am I doing this right? Would it work better? Would I get a better result if I pushed harder? Would I get a different result if I just shouted or threw my toys out the cot? And maybe I would, but would it be sustainable? And I don't think so.
Yeah, and does it really create a better person on the other side? So it's a fascinating journey that I think people carrying leaders somewhere have to confront in their lives. Old man, you've got 2 questions or so, and then I'll continue with 2 or 3 more. You want to unmute yourself and then ask your questions?
I just want to, for your journey, Kerry-Anne, because make no mistake, to become a caring leader is a process that takes the price. There's no question that many leaders who are perhaps considered to be dynamic leaders feel threatened by a caring leader because it takes a inner confidence to have that, and it really is good to see it in you. We thank you for that. Audrey, I just want to ask Kerry-Anne. Kerry-Anne, 2 questions help us a great deal into getting insight into the quality of a leader. And those 2 questions run parallel. And you've really spoken in essence about that. The first question is, how true am I to my true self or my best self? This journey you spoke about. And secondly, and that's parallel, is how do I cope with all the different influences which effectively are trying to erode my journey to my best self, to self. And in the real sense, this applies to anybody. For instance, you mentioned the point, you mentioned Ardian as well, about if you speak to people in the individual drivers, who they are, it changes the ball game completely because you're speaking from them. It's nothing to do with arrogance on yourself. And this is what the Me Vision is about, to identify the uniqueness of other people, help them understand it. We find out. Now, I've been involved a lifetime with this as a church minister as well and author. But Kerry-Anne, I'm learning all the time because there's no limit to the depth of a person's spirit. And what you are saying confirms, well, the beauty and also the kind of quiet confidence that a person starts developing if they have your mindset of really being a caring leader. It really avoids so much of the of that. I once heard a person telling us that he went with a friend to collect crabs. Now, don't ask me what the crabs were for. Could be bait. Of course, people eat crabs as well. But then after a while, he found the person wasn't putting a lid on the basket. And he asked him, "Aren't you afraid of the crabs crawling out?" He says, "No, they pull each other down." And so it is. That second parallel question helps us understand, what are those crabs pulling me down to stop me from being true to myself, to being honest with myself, and having this great trust in who I really am.
Okay, so let's just go back to the two questions then, Kerry-Anne, if you want to add to those. How are you doing in living up to your true and best self? And then how are you doing in overcoming those, call it intruder influences that seek to pull you away from who you really are and trying to be? You want to comment something on that?
Sure, those really do live in parallel because there are so many influences that are trying to pull you back into societal's norm of what leadership or management is like, or just general, just being. And it is something that, I often catch myself. And I think that's where, having learned the Enneagram and realized that once you start to understand your personality and who you are and your authenticity and what is it you want and how you want to be in this world, you're able to catch those triggers as they're happening. So, I might find myself wanting to fall into the trap of chameleoning and wanting to be like what all the other management or execs are saying must happen in my department or with my people, and wanting to feel like, okay, this is what needs to be done. But I'm not at a point where I feel like I can catch that. I don't need to shape shift into, someone who looks like a successful leader. I can just be true to who I am and say, I'm going to do it my way. And I think that has just been the thing that has pulled me through this year, is that I need to do it my way, because that is when I'm going to be authentic. My personal struggles have been, how do I put my most authentic self forward? How do I do this in the world? And how do I show up as me, not just how I think someone wants me to look like, what the representation of a leader is? How do I show up as me? And so that is a daily struggle, not allowing myself to get sucked into those, ideals of what other people think I should be doing. And, sometimes you do trip and you do fall and you do get pulled down. But I think, it's about transitioning quickly from those instances and, making up for what went wrong or how things went wrong, to understand deeper what made me fall, or what pulled me down. How did I allow this to happen? And when you start to question yourself like that from, in a dynamic way, externally from how you might be feeling, then you can start to say, okay, this is what my triggers are. And then you can start to put things in or boundaries in And that's where, again, me doing it my way is a firm boundary. And that's really what's helped me, to continue and then to continually question that. Is this boundary the right one?
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much. Old man, did you want to say something? Follow up there before I ask my questions?
Kerry-Anne, I must admit, I smile at the process of you running up against these rock walls of people around you that could be pretty good people, but they really stop you from being true to what you know is right. When you use the expression, though, I tend to work in my own way. It's really the opposite of self-indulgence, but it's the only way to draw a line. So at least you can determine the parameters that you and the next person can work with. So there's a time and place. Getting back to your statement just now, Adrian, that sometimes caring leaders are seen as weak leaders. But the truth is that a caring leader is everything except a weak leader. And I just love to see the steel that comes out when people pay the price. But it's a difference between being nice and kind, Kerry. Many people can be nice, but it's a weakness. When people are kind, it's different. It's the opposite of just being nice. So I just appreciate the journey you've been on. I think this is the golden thread that's really keeping the world from going over the edge in terms of so many other influences that are dominant and want to create a society that's completely self-indulgent and it's not healthy for us.
Kerry-Anne, thank you, old man. We can't think of anything more important than to create more people caring leaders out there, because that creates happier environments. It creates a different society, happier family environments. It just changes the whole world. What are you doing to create more people caring leaders around you? Are you very precise about that in your mind? Are you very what's the right word? Are you very determined about that? Is it a conscious thing you're doing? Tell us more about it.
Look, I think it's not something that I've particularly envisaged or planned on. It's something that's happened as a byproduct of being a good example of what a people caring leader could look like. And so, when you create or cultivate an environment of acceptance and kindness, then people are very receptive to that. And so they start to question and ask and start to think a bit more like you do or like I do in how you approach people. Again, in the same way, if the example was a poor example, those crabs would be pulling them down at the same time. So, I think I lead by example, and so then create or facilitate room for growth from my, leaders around me. And I think that's, again, it hasn't been something that I've specifically worked on or thought about or been conscious of, but I am aware of it happening.
Yeah, and that is something, probably an area in which a lot of people caring leaders can take it to the next level. So yourself to be a people caring leader is one side of it. The next level that you take it to, and we call it almost a level 5, is where you start
level 5 leadership.
Yeah, you consciously start developing people caring leaders. From said. And maybe one of my last questions is, you mentioned earlier feedback, critical feedback. And one thing I have seen, when someone is truly a people caring leader and we say to them, okay, so someone's nominated you or you've nominated yourself, do you mind if we go to your people and, not behind your back, with your permission, but we go to your people that you work with and do a bit of an engagement with them to find out and authenticate that? I find that they're not scared of that they actually allow it.
Yes, welcome it.
welcome it, in fact. Absolutely. I've seen that they've got no barriers to that. And I think one of the determining factors will be those who deny that are possibly not people caring leaders. And I'm starting to see that emerge as a characteristic. But that's therefore what's so important is if you as a people caring leader are not fearful of feedback, critical feedback from those you lead, then for them perhaps to become people caring leaders, they should receive critical feedback from those that report to them. Ultimately, I can receive critical feedback from my boss, I can receive it from my peers perhaps, but I need to receive it from those that I actually lead. And that's going to help me become a people.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Is it possible for a people caring leader to slip back to their old self and start placing the other P's above the P for people? Apparently, we believe it's possible, right? So, what are your thoughts on that, and how do you stop yourself from going back to maybe an old Kerry-Anne?
Behavior is contextual. And I think that whenever there are external influences, that are beyond our control, we would often revert to, a more defended self. So, as much as I would say I'm a people caring leader and I tend to stay that way, there will be slip ups. I'm very sure of that. And in the same way, I welcome the feedback when it happens as quickly as possible. But yes, I do think that people, as much as they can grow, they can also backslide, but hopefully not for long. And hopefully with the skills that they've got, they're able to develop and get back on track. That's, my opinion is that I think that you can deviate from the plan, but it's quicker to get back onto the right path because you're familiar with that path.
Kerry-Anne Mathieson, thank you so much for your comments and your views and sharing your thoughts on leadership, people caring leadership. We look forward to preparing your certificate, your Me Vision Academy certificate, as a reward and recognition for the kind of leader you are and that you continue to try and be. And we look forward to engaging you more in the future, but in particular, sharing this conversation with leaders out there on social media and other platforms. I don't know if the last word you want to share with leaders. So those who are, as I said to previous interviewees, I said, you have people who will never be or never want to be people caring leaders. Then you have those who believe they are, and when they go through critical feedback, they discover they're not. And then you have those who really want to be. They want to be, but they just can't get there. Any word for any of those populations out there, or all three maybe? What would you say?
Yeah. It's interesting that I listened to a podcast by Mel Robbins this morning, and it was talking about your to-do list and what are you leaving on your list that's not being addressed. And one of the items that she was speaking about was imposter syndrome, which is something that I've always struggled with. And when you apply this to any area in your life, you'll realize that you'll be okay, and is that you're just a beginner. You can't have imposter syndrome if you're a beginner because you are where you're at. So there's always room for growth. It doesn't matter where you're going or where you're at now. You're just starting.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Kerry-Anne Mathieson. Old man, I don't know if you have 10 seconds of your final comments, and then we'll end it.
Very, very briefly, Kerry-Anne, my experience is that a really caring leader really says he or she is a caring leader. Because even that term can be seen as in a egotistical. What they do is they go ahead and care, and that generates a chain reaction which can be so miraculous. Thank you. It is a delight listening to you.
Thank you. It was great to meet you.
Kerry-Anne Mathieson, thank you for joining us on Me Vision Academy and our conversations with people caring leaders. And we look forward to sharing more.
Great. Thank you. Thanks very much for having me.